So before you tonight, we've got a public hearing, really two components. We've got a rezone and a preliminary plat. And this is for Indian Hills 9th edition to the city of Moscow. And so we're going to be rezoning 9.32 acres, currently designated as farm, ranch, and outdoor recreation, to a combination of our R2, which is moderate density residential, and R3, which is medium density residential. The subdivision is a 21.73 acre area of land, and that's generally located east of Main Street and north of Palouse River Drive, kind of two segments. There are 32 parcels being proposed, and those range with a little over 7,000 square feet in size, all the way up to about 3.76 acres in size. So just to orient yourself to your screen here, we've got Main Street on the left side, Palouse River Drive running east-west to the south. These are the parcels, so three distinct parcels that are being subdivided. One's directly adjacent to Main Street. We've got Southview Avenue, which we were platted in between those two parcels to the west. This is the Campus Crest development that was part of Indian Hills 8th edition that ended up platting these streets that you're looking at the center of your screen. Nursery Street running north-south ends up teeing into Southview. And you also have a short segment of Powers Avenue that terminates into the easterly portion of the subject property. Looking to the north, this is Indian Hills Drive. You have primarily single-family dwellings located there, but they do transition to more duplex and multifamily further to the north. And then primarily commercial to the south. So you have a farm implement company, auto mechanics here to the southwest. You have a church, institutional use to the south as well, and then various other, we've got the public health office to the south side of Palouse River Drive, as well as a couple other auto body, auto mechanic type uses and some storage units off of Nursery Street. And then as you transition to the east, primarily agricultural, so pretty much a farm that's currently, or a field that's currently being farmed, as well as some other single-family residential properties. So just a closer view of the property to the west. As you can see, the implement yard here, 95, Southview comes in. We do have undeveloped right-of-way, which is Myrtle Street, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on in the presentation. And then you can see Campus Crest development, the Grove there to the east. And this is the closer view of the property to the right of your screen. So you can see Nursery Street, Powers. You have Alice Street that comes down. It's stubbed from Indian Hills Drive, primarily being used for agricultural purposes right now. And then this would be the imprint of the Parkland Exchange that ended up occurring a couple weeks ago that the council approved. And we'll talk about that as well. We've got a contour map shown on your screen. So these represent 2-foot contour elevations, 2 feet of elevation change within each line. So you can see there's some ridges on the property and some valleys, typical Palouse topography on this land. Taking a look at the current comprehensive plan land use designations, the property to the left of your screen is auto urban commercial, and the property to the right is auto urban residential. To the center with Campus Crest is urban residential. To the north is our current neighborhood conservation designation. And then you have a mixture property to the southwest and to the south is also designated as auto urban commercial. And then you have a research technology park designation here to the southeast adjacent to Palouse River Drive. And then further south beyond that is our industrial designation with Fountains Industrial Park in that area. So taking a look at what the comp plan says about that auto urban commercial, it's intended to provide commercial services that are motor vehicle oriented, which require large amounts of land. We want to try to locate those existing commercial developments along major arterials where the vehicular traffic can be accommodated. Should be required to provide significant landscaping when you have adjacent uses that could be residential. And those areas are most appropriately zoned motor business, which is the current designation of those properties. Then auto urban residential, it's typically our low to moderate density zone. typically 3 to 7 units per acre. Contains a mixture of single-family townhome and limited multifamily. And then it points to an appropriate zoning designations of R1, R2, or R3. Taking a look at the current zoning of the property in the surrounding area. So we have motor business, like I just mentioned, on the west. R4, which is the Grove, to the center. And then you've got farm, ranch, and outdoor recreation is the green here to the right of your screen. Up north along Indian Hills Drive is the R1, which is our lowest density single-family residential zone. And then you have a mixture of some R3 and R2 there to the north, northeast. So the only proposal for rezoning is just the property to the right of your screen. Palouse Prairie Charter School ended up getting a conditional use permit, and I have a slide on that coming up, but they essentially approved a lot division to divide this piece off. There'll be remaining farm, ranch, and outdoor recreation just because they, purely don't need to have a rezone. The division was approved, and a 3-acre minimum for farm ranch is what the zone minimum is, and they meet that right now. So there's no need for a rezone of that property. But they are proposing to rezone the remainder of this property to the right. A short segment of R3, which is medium density residential, and then we have R2, which is moderate density residential. So looking at the existing properties there to the left of your screen, motor business, similar to the auto urban commercial designation. We want to group these compatible uses, having similar operation as they involved primarily the automobile. And then concentrating these uses, city intends to increase public convenience when utilizing these services. And then this is a wide variety of commercial services that are allowed within this zone, anywhere from retail enterprises, office, eating and drinking establishments, printing and publishing houses, religious institutions, residential uses, hotels, motels, off-street parking facilities, kennels, storage facilities, laundromats, light manufacturing. So really just a wide variety of commercial uses and some residential uses within that zone. So looking at our proposed zones, R2, moderate density residential, the zoning code points to appropriate locations and circumstances where it should be applied. So where single family dwellings predominate the area, the terrain isn't harsh or irregular, and we can have smaller lot sizes. Utilities and other public facilities are adequate, and existing lot development patterns and policies embodied in the plan, meaning comprehensive plan, also guide the application of this zone. Minimum lot size, 7,000 square feet. Minimum lot width is 60 feet or 50 feet in circumstances where there's a rear alley, which we don't have any of those in this case, so it'd be 60 feet for the minimum lot width. Our R3 zone provides for a little bit more increase in density over some of the lower residential zones. Appropriate where activity levels are moderate. The terrain allows for construction of somewhat larger structures, and of course we have the public systems that can accommodate the density, and the comp plan guides that as well. Allows for these mixtures of uses within this zone, increasing from R2, which is primarily just single family. So R3 we would allow single family. We also allow 2-family, twin home and townhouse dwellings. Minimum lot size, 6,000 for single family dwellings, 7,000 for 2-family, 3,250 for twin home dwellings, 2,000 for townhome. But we do have a density restriction within R3. Even though you may be able to go down to 2,000, you still need to have, you can't exceed 14.5 dwelling units per acre. So that usually averages out about 3,000 square feet per lot in order to meet that. And then looking at the width, single family, 2-family, we have 60 feet, 30 feet for twin homes, and 20 feet for townhouse dwellings. So this brings us to the proposed preliminary plat. You can see those properties to the west of your screen. We've got the existing 2 parcels. The one to the south is proposed to be divided into 3 lots. The one to the north is just going to remain, 1 lot to the north of south view. I just wanted to briefly go over the Palouse Prairie Charter School. December 11th of last year, they ended up getting approved for a conditional use permit with the Board of Adjustment in order to be located on that small 3.2 acre portion of the property. And then they followed up with a division before City Council that ended up dividing the 3.26 acres off from the 7.1 acres where the original parcel was 10.36. So brings us to the property to the east. You can see Nursery Street, Palouse Prairie Charter School. This is the 3.26 acres. Powers Avenue, one of the conditions for the lot division was that a cul-de-sac be dedicated and constructed prior to any building permits happening on that property. So you can see the faint outline of the cul-de-sac, and there was more detail provided in the construction drawings, and then when the conditional use permit was heard by the Board of Adjustment for the cul-de-sac detail. Southview Avenue, you can see, extends further to the east, ends up combining with Alice Street into a T intersection. The intention is to continue Southview onto the property to the east for future development as soon as that property is ready for development. Sunny Court is a cul-de-sac, just comes off of Southview, ends up serving about 5 lots down here, as well as a couple corner lots off of Southview. Alice Street comes down. We do have a proposed pedestrian easement with a pathway that connects Southview to the northeast corner of Palouse Prairie Charter School, and then primarily all the utilities are ran in Southview. They end up coming down Sunny Court. There is a 30-foot utility easement along the south boundary of this preliminary plat, as well as other utility easements in Sunny Court, and then one coming down the flagpole of Lot 16 here in the southeast corner. You can see these are the R3 lots that are proposed to be rezoned, so there's 3 of those. The remainder are all R2. So we have a total of 32 parcels. We've got the motor business zone with 4 parcels, and those range between a little over 1 acres to 3.76 acres in size. Our R3 zone properties are just 3, and they range from a little over 9,000 to 10,788 square feet in size. So those meet the minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet for that zone. R2 zone property, we've got the majority of the parcels here, 25, ranging from 7,000 to 14,576, and the minimum lot size for R2 is 7,000, so all of those parcels meet that minimum lot size. And then we've got the 20-foot wide public pedestrian corridor with pathway that I'd mentioned earlier for the school. Looking at our street network, all primarily designated as local neighborhood streets. We don't have any minor arterials or collectors. Closest arterial is going to be Palouse River Drive. Looking at the local neighborhood street standards, 60 feet of total width, 36-foot wide street, and it does include parking on both sides with an 8-foot tree lawn and a 5-foot sidewalk on both sides of the streets as well. Like we'd mentioned, Alice Street will be extended down, and Powers Avenue will not continue. It will terminate into a cul-de-sac. And then Palouse River Drive's that minor arterial. We do designate Highway 95 Main Street as a national highway, and then Myrtle Street, currently platted but not constructed. When Indian Hills 8th edition went through the development stage and was approved by council, within the development agreement, basically stipulated that Myrtle Street shall be constructed prior to any building permits being issued on those commercial properties to the west. And so staff's proposing to continue that condition on with Indian Hills 9th edition preliminary plat, as well as enter that into the development agreement. So that's one of the recommended conditions tonight, would be to carry that over and tie that to those development of the properties, commercial properties to the west. Utilities, we'd gone over the mains being extended in Southview Nursery Street intersection. They end up looping around to Powers Avenue, as well as going down Sunny Court into Powers Avenue. Looking at our 2012 Comprehensive Water System Plan, Public Works Department has modeled this and determined that the existing system has adequate potable and fire flows to serve this proposed development. Sanitary sewer system extended in a similar fashion as the water system, looped through the development, ended up coming out through Powers Avenue, also within a 30-foot utility easement along the South Plat boundary. And then Public Works has also looked at the comprehensive sewer system plan for this development and determined that it is adequate to serve the additional flow. And our storm sewer system, similar to the other systems that are being extended through, they end up going south through the flagpole portion along the south property line, and ultimately ends up heading due south close to the Powers Avenue cul-de-sac. And there's a stormwater detention pond that's being proposed in the southeast corner of Lot 1, Block 3 of Indian Hills 8th Edition. And so that's outside of the Plat boundary, but the conveyance of the stormwater from this development is adequate to be served with that proposed detention pond on that property. Parkland, I'm sure you all recall Indian Hills 8th Edition, so they ended up dedicating the property further to the right that we had looked at, 1.74 acres outside the Plat boundary. The applicant ended up making a request to exchange with City Council for a 4.09 acre parcel, which was located in Indian Hills 8th Edition. Property request was reviewed by Parks and Rec, Pathway Commission, Tree Commission, who recommended council approval. And then the proposed exchange was heard by City Council, and that happened April 2nd of this year, and Council ultimately approved it at that meeting. So just to refresh your memory, we had the existing parkland here to the east. This was the proposed parkland exchange, which was approved, and so we no longer need that condition. Planning and Zoning had one condition in order to complete the parkland exchange, but we don't need that anymore since that's been completed. So the applicant did conduct a neighborhood meeting, happened February 7th of this year, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing, happened on March 28th of this year as well. And they recommended approval of the rezone with no conditions, and then recommended approval of the preliminary plat with 2 conditions. First one was that the applicant extend water and sewer mains to the east boundary of the property to allow for future development to the east. Currently, I think there's just water that's being extended to that property, so it's storm and sanitary that they would need to extend, and it's only a 10-foot segment. And then the recommendation in regards to the parkland exchange being completed prior to the plat going before council. So with that, staff's recommendation before you tonight is to conduct a public hearing upon the proposed zoning designations, and upon consideration of any testimony presented, approve the proposed zoning ordinance under suspension of the rules. Then, in accordance with the decision upon the zoning designation request, adopt Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria for the rezone. And then for the preliminary plat, conduct a public hearing as well. And upon consideration of any testimony presented, approve the preliminary plat for Indian Hills 9th Edition with the following 2 conditions recommended by staff. Now, the first one is the same one that Planning and Zoning Commission recommended about extending water and sewer to the east boundary of the property. We don't need the second one from Planning and Zoning, but we would like to have a condition associated with Myrtle's construction tied to the issuance of building permits on lots 1, 2, and 3 of Block 2 of the proposed preliminary subdivision plat. And then in accordance with the decision of the preliminary subdivision plat, adopt Planning and Zoning Commission's RCS document with a modification to the last condition recommended by staff tonight. So I'd certainly be able to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, Mike, with that, we have 4 actions this evening. We will have 1 public hearing that will cover the zoning as well as the preliminary subdivision plat.